What does it take to build a creative workforce for an entire city and make sure it's built with equity at the center? Today's guest, Alia Jones-Harvey, has helped over 20,000 New Yorkers access opportunities in entertainment and media, not by chance, but by design. From Broadway to City Hall, she's quietly shaped the future of storytelling and innovation in New York, and doing it with patterns of partnership, access, and purpose.
Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. I'm your host, Bukola Oguntala, keynote speaker, HR strategist, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience supporting leaders through growth and transition. I'm also a first-generation Nigerian American. My name, Bukola, means added to the greatness in Yoruba, and this podcast is one way I live that out. We're living in a time of constant acceleration. AI, automation, and performance culture push us to go faster and do more. But speed isn't the same as wisdom, and going fast doesn't mean we're moving forward. That's why I created this space to reclaim the human side of leadership. If you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the show and hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss any episode when it drops every other week. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following since day one, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked, where we talk about leadership patterns, what holds us back, what moves us forward, and how to lead with more awareness and intention. I'm your host, Bukola Oguntala, and today's guest is someone who spent her career helping people step into possibility. She's a quiet force behind the scenes of some of the biggest creative industries. She's nothing short of a force in American theater and media. Alia Jones-Harvey is an Olivier Award-winning and six-time Tony-nominated Broadway producer who has spent nearly 2 decades championing equity on the world's biggest stages. As co-founder of Front Row Productions, she and her producing partner made history as the only 2 Black lead producers on Broadway for 15 years. From Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with James Earl Jones and Felicia Rashad to Eclipsed with Lupita Nyong'o to Ain't Too Proud, MJ the Musical, and The Piano Lesson. Alia's track record is bold, groundbreaking, and deeply intentional, but her impact goes far beyond the stage. An associate commissioner for the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, she's launched education and workforce programs that have served over 20,000 New Yorkers in the arts, including women, students, and underrepresented voices in film, theater, music, and gaming. A Spelman grad and Georgia Tech grad with an NYU MBA. What? Alia's brilliance is matched by her vision. She's building the future of creative leadership on stage, behind the scenes, and in boardrooms. Alia, I'm so honored to have you here, my classmate, my fellow alum. I just appreciate you making time and just being my first guest on Beyond the Pattern. So thank you. I'm just gonna clap. Now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on launching this Beyond the Pattern. It's exciting to hear about your venture and really exploring leadership and what it can look like.
No, I'm excited. What were you thinking when I first reached out to you? I was like, will you be a guest on my podcast?
Okay, my first thought was that you were going to help me navigate my next pivot.
Okay.
Well, let's do
that today. Let's do it.
Okay. All right, ready?
No. You can tell me more about that now, or I can touch base with you offline. But yeah, any more you want to share about that?
I'm always looking at how I can be of service, and I feel like I've fallen into it. It wasn't something that I started out saying. How am I going to be of service when I started my career? It just presented itself. And Broadway started out as a business opportunity for me. And, standing in the back of the theater, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof being our first production, which was totally surreal. And, James Earl Jones standing in front of you at a rehearsal, and you're just like,
yeah.
and he's calling me Jonesy, and he's like he's like, are we related? And I'm just
I,
in awe to even stepping into the theater and seeing that the mission of Front Row Productions would need to go beyond what was on the stage to the stagehands, to the creative team, to the advertising agency that we're using, the accounting firm, the legal team. The fact that there was so much opportunity to try to bring access to more people than we're getting access to first class theater and to presenting on Broadway and to being a part of the ecosystem of the business. So understanding that was kind of mind blowing. And standing in the back of the theater, I think we went to every single performance of our first production because it was so surreal and
yeah.
because every night was just magical and we couldn't believe it. And we wanted to meet the audiences and we wanted to understand more about the business because knew nothing about theater. I was
Hmm.
not a theater major.
Yeah. Yeah.
So learning, trial by fire, feet to the fire
Yeah.
was how it happened. But at the end of the day, being able to reflect on how it has unfolded, becoming someone who's been in the business for years now, I see producing as a service to the creatives that are working to present their stories to the world. And so as the producer, you're really the conduit.
Wow. When I first learned of the work you were doing, I mean, first of all, just having gone to college with you, I mean, we went to school with some amazing people, and we met on student government, right? And so I
We
mean,
have the famous picture with Stacey Abrams. That's
yeah,
right. He
yeah,
was
yeah.
he was a part of our he was a part of
Yeah.
our administration.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were the freshmen that wanted to be well, raised our hand to be leaders. We just got there and raised our hand to be leaders at Spelman in Atlanta. And that was my first time crossing paths with you. And I was just always blown away. First of all, you're wicked smart. And then you're just kind of like unassuming because, it's like you don't just kind of, just focus on being the smartest in the room, but you'll drop these like nuggets or you'll just creatively find a way to influence behind the scenes and produce, in a way that, my style was very different being from Jersey and just very direct, between Nigeria and Jersey. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. I was a little more direct and your style was just, just really cool to watch. I mean, it's been cool to watch all of us evolve, to be quite honest, but to hear what you were up to, I mean, you seem to be queen of the pivots from Spelman to corporate life to a Georgia Tech MBA, then no, Georgia Tech, and then got an MBA on top of that, right? And you did corporate stints in between all that, and then transitioned to theater and the creative arts. And yeah. So anyway, I'm really excited to just kind of hear your thoughts about, just your life and your style of leadership. I mean, the way I look at leadership is, a lot of times we have to get to a point where we can lead ourselves before we can influence or lead others. And so a lot of times it helps to start with understanding your quirks and your own patterns and what works well, and what doesn't work well before you can start to effectively influence others. And so that's a bit about what this podcast is about beyond the pattern. I mean, for me as a first generation American, having to navigate a system that your parents know nothing about, and so I've had to quickly read the room and assess and being able to pick up on patterns has played a big role in any of the wins that I've been able to get, as well as just awesome people that have poured into me. So I mean, so thanks again for being on the show. I want to start by asking you, can you share what you see as a defining moment early in your life or career that just shaped how you lead today? And you could define leadership as you see fit, but just a defining moment.
So I think that I was very much motivated by innovation, by, I won't say being the first, but I will say that there was something that was driving me into the path less traveled.
Okay.
Um,
Pioneer.
and
Okay. Hmm.
and I've often been attracted to pioneering
Mm,
in life. And so while I didn't feel like engineering or the MBA were necessarily pioneering, I thought that my goals
mm,
were, unique.
hmm.
And there was something about being unique that was important to me. And even to this day, when I think about the work that I'm doing with the mayor's office, the work that I'm attracted to is around creating something where nothing existed, or trying to see what would be most impactful to prepare New York for the future.
Yeah.
And so that's what's been driving, my thought pattern and kind of the questions that I'm asking when we're looking at what kinds of programs we do. When I look at what I'm choosing to get involved with in the theater, the same litmus test is there. Is this important in the moment? Do I think this is something that is revolutionary in a way?
Hmm.
And that always attracts me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say that goes back to my college essay.
Okay.
But,
Okay. Which
but
college? Which of the three colleges?
well, when I applied to Spelman, my essay was about the road less traveled. By the time I got to the program at Stern, NYU, interestingly enough, I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I was looking at leaving Procter and Gamble, and I
Mhm.
thought that it would be in the dot-com space.
Mm,
But this was right at the time of a big transition, a big bust in the dot-com industry. There was a Silicon Alley in New York in 2000.
mhm.
In 2001, when I got here, there was no Silicon Alley.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Which, it redirected what I would be studying and working on while in school. But I had this idea that I would be an entrepreneur going all the way back to college. But then in the hedge fund space, I was attracted because I thought that it would be entrepreneurial and I would be able to create my own design of a business. And when Stephen, my producing partner, when Stephen Berg called me and said, "Would you partner with me to produce on Broadway?" I was at a hedge fund and I was attracted to this because I thought this is a product, not unlike me marketing the hedge fund product, but this is a product that I can really believe in and find the investor for this product more readily
Hmm.
than what we were selling through the hedge fund. So I jumped at the opportunity, and in jumping at the opportunity, I did not understand that we were the only Black producers on Broadway at the time. I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about what was happening in the
Mhm.
ecosystem. I
Mhm.
knew that we had an interest. I knew that I had seen shows, and I knew that we had an interest in seeing more people of color on stage, but I had no idea that the industry could benefit from so many, so much more
Yeah. Yeah.
infusion of voices at the time.
Got
And
it.
so,
Wow. Wow. So you covered a lot. I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, the college essay, I mean, you can tie that back to the college essay and you talked about entrepreneurship. I mean, I can relate to that because I feel like, at the core, that was me as well, like just wanting to chart my own path. I felt like I had something unique and special to offer. I wanted to figure that out. I can appreciate that a lot. I think for me, probably right around the circle events that revolved around my mother's death, I think that's when it just kind of was like, okay, there's purpose around me being here. What
mm,
am I gonna do with this opportunity? My name means add to the greatness. What are you gonna do?
you got to add
what
to the
what are you
greatness.
gonna do? So yeah, yeah. And the college essays, like, yeah, I remember that. They stressed me out, but I got through it. I got through it. So yeah,
But
no.
I feel like that's the pattern, to your point,
Mhm.
that I mean, and I'm only just piecing this together, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's the pattern that I see. That I'm definitely. I mean, 5 years ago, I said to my commissioner at the mayor's office that I think we should be looking at games.
You so you
That
brought that up. Yeah. And
that,
what was it about game? Yeah.
I'm just like video games have enveloped the film and television industry in terms of size and scope. And if New York is not focused on video games, New York will not be in the industry. New York will not be a hub for game development. And ultimately, in this city, that's the most expensive city in the country,
Hmm.
we are often and constantly looking for opportunities for New Yorkers to find career paths
Hmm.
that pay a living wage
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah.
And game development and all of that industry offers that opportunity. And so if we're not focused on it, and we've seen it happen with so many industries here. This used to be the center of animation. It's not now.
Mm.
And so without a concerted effort and focus and injection by the city, there's nothing that's tethering the industry to the city. And now everything's global, everything's
Yeah.
happening online. So there's nothing that's drawing you to be in any particular place unless there is some, real community investment
Mhm.
ecosystem in that
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, in gaming, yeah, even when I think about your intro and it involved just bringing equity and a unique approach or perspective to how you tap into different industries. Like when I think of gaming, I think of,
Do you
you
think
know,
of the video games you played when you were a kid or
well, yeah, well, so I don't know that Pac-Man and Atari and all that are relevant, but like
I just bought the Atari replica, so I
wow,
can
wow,
play.
wow. No, but I mean, I think of, I see these young men on TV, and I just picture folks maybe in basements, whatever, and they're just, playing nonstop, but they're making all this money in these major competitions, and their parents kind of sleep on them and think it's like silly, and some people might even judge it, but there's an opportunity to really do well financially.
Oh yeah, and then recognizing that gamification is happening in everything that we
Right,
do now.
right, right.
I've got my Apple Watch on. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
game to
yeah.
encourage me to be active.
Hmm. Hmm.
We host Games for Change in New York. It's been in the city for over 20 years,
Yeah.
and it's a conference. It's really a festival now, one of the largest festivals around games in the city, but it's all of the games industry coming together to say that games can be impactful.
Okay.
Games can create change. So games have evolved way beyond Pac-Man.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, because even in the work I do in HR, I see how it's being woven into learning. I see
Mhm.
how it's been woven into just different things to help employees be engaged. Um,
Oh, I
yeah.
just completed a training
Hmm. Hmm.
that was a
Hmm.
game.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So no, that makes sense. That makes sense that that would be on your radar for New York. Let me ask you a few follow-ups to that first question about the defining moment. Were there any, well, you talked about the patterns, but I want to talk more about were there any patterns you had to unlearn in order to grow and even position
Mm.
yourself for some of these opportunities?
Oh, wow. Okay. I think there's a common perception that you always have to be moving forward in your career.
Mhm.
And I had to accept that I would have to take a step backwards or be the apprentice all over again,
Yeah.
mid-career.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
did that twice. I think Broadway, I remember we were very lucky. And I'll mention, and it's something that you said earlier, but I'll mention that we had a lot of angels that stepped into our journey to get to Broadway. And, we had a lawyer who was writing the LexisNexis series on how to produce on Broadway. We had a general manager. We didn't know she was the president of the Broadway League, which is like the organization that's the trade organization for
Oh,
the industry.
yeah.
And so when she was walking us into meetings with the theater owners who are really determining whether or not you are going to be on Broadway or not, it's their real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're making the decision based on what you're presenting to them. We didn't know that, we were getting this welcome reception because we're standing next to the general manager who happens to be the president of the trade organization that is Broadway. And so there was that. So Gerald Schoenfeld, who ran the Schubert organization during the years where we were really lobbying to get a theater, it took us 2 years to get the first show up. And Nina Lannon was the president of the league and our general manager. And when she brought us into his office, and if you can imagine, the Schubert organization is long-standing, almost 100 years old, I think, at this point, and storied. The Schuberts own 17 of the Broadway houses.
Oh, wow.
The Schubert offices are, when you go up the elevator into the Schubert offices, it's like traveling in a time machine into
Right.
his, another time, with wood paneling all around and boardroom, and right in the middle of the theater district. Gerald Schoenfeld was holding a class. And when Nina Lannon brought us in to introduce us to Gerald Schoenfeld, who was the president of the Schubert organization at the time, and he met me, he said, "Oh, okay, we presented our whole concept," and he was like, "This sounds wonderful. I want you to sit in on my class." And at that point, I'm just thinking we're raising millions of dollars, and he wants me to sit in on his class. But it was brilliant, and I was willing to do it because I knew nothing about theater. I knew about raising money, but I didn't know anything about theater. And so it was a great opportunity for me to get educated by someone who'd been in the industry and who was really beacon at the time. So I sat in on one of his classes, and at some point he turns to me and says, "Okay, tell this class about this production that you're pitching, and give them the pitch. Let's see what they have to say."
Right.
So I said, "Oh, we want to do an all-black version of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof."
Wow.
The original production on Broadway and every revival is profitable. We think we could tap into a new audience with an all-black version of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. We think that if we bring Broadway royalty together with the intensity of young actors who are hot, up and coming, that it will be attractive to audiences. And so then he says, "Well, who is this cast that you have in mind? Who's going to do this?" And we see James Earl Jones. He's always wanted to play Big Daddy. He's told us that. Felicia Rashad, who told us that, she studied the classics at Howard, but never thought she would be able to play any of those characters commercially, professionally. Anika Noni Rose, who, in addition to James and Felicia being a Tony winner, she was also a Tony winner. So all of them being the Broadway royalty that we were bringing to the table. And then I said to the group, "And Terrence Howard, who from," and at the time, Gerald Schoenfeld did not know who I was talking about. And so he was not excited at all about Terrence Howard, but
the class.
I said, "You know him from Crash, this ensemble film that was so brilliant. That audience wouldn't necessarily know him from The Best Man, even though I saw The Best Man and thought he has the intensity of a brick." Right. He has the intensity of the brooding, lost soul that is Brick. And the class went crazy when I said Terrence Howard, and they were like, "Oh, that's brilliant."
They got it right away.
This is exciting. And that's how I think that's what led to Gerald Schoenfeld calling us. So Angels, and then we had the serendipity of a writer's strike in Hollywood and a theater strike on Broadway that had shows close that were not slated to close. Right. So all of a sudden, a theater became available. We had 1 month to get in. We had 1 month to raise all the money, 1 month to, commit and pull the cast back together and all of that. I mean, all of that story. But that's what I think turned him to, "We're going to give you a theater. We're going to give you a shot." And then creating that excitement around the show that made it the biggest grossing play in that season. And so we started off on a really high note, which is probably unusual.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm. Hmm.
unusual for
Yeah.
Broadway, but it was a trial by fire, definitely an introduction to an industry that I did not understand when I started, but learned so much by working with people that cherish this craft and work so hard every day to create theater, that it's just made me feel really lucky to be a part of
Yeah.
it. And after the first production ended, Stephen and I looked at each other and said, we have to keep doing this.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
It was such a
Wow.
rush and gave us purpose, as you were talking about, and gave
Mm.
us so much in working with all of the members of the company and all of the members of the creative team and all the members of the production, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, a lot of twists and turns, but as I listened to you talk through the different steps, one thing that I was really present to is just how consistently when I hear the impact you've had across industry, it seems like learning has been a big part of it. Like, I know you don't make a big deal about it, but you have 3 degrees from very impressive organizations. And so that's a pattern to me that I'm not sure if you're comfortable speaking to the role that education plays in your life, but to get 3 degrees from strong, reputable like Georgia Tech and NYU and Spelman, and then I think about you pivoting as much as you have. I get what you were saying about being a pioneer, being unique, but the learning piece, like
That's
your
interesting.
the role that education has played. I guess I'm interested in hearing more about what you think about that part of your value system that's driven you. Yeah.
My mom was a teacher
Okay.
for 40 some years in several school systems.
Ooh, was she a
Uh,
teacher? She was a professor, a teacher?
she was a teacher, special education.
Oh, wow. So very
Uh,
patient.
yes,
Wow.
and her mother before her, my grandmother. I have always valued education as the tool, the key
Mhm.
to opening doors. So I think I went a somewhat traditional route, only 3 degrees because I always knew that when I decided I wanted to pursue engineering, which was in high school, the concept was, and I picked industrial engineering, believe it or not, even though some people are like, oh, that was the easy one. But I picked industrial engineering in high school after reading through all of the different types of engineering. And what's interesting to me about the time, and I think about just signals that we had as we were adolescents growing up, signals, engineering and STEM and sciences and pursuing the sciences was a major thrust in
Mhm.
education when we were going to school. And so I knew I wanted to do engineering. I thought it would be a way for me to qualify for a scholarship. And that's what happened.
Oh, okay.
I ended up being a NASA scholar and pursuing engineering all based on this idea. But industrial engineering spoke to me because the idea of perfecting processes and the idea of creating processes of optimization
Hmm.
was what I thought would carry me through my entrepreneurial pursuits. So, in my mind, the business degree on the back end was just the period on what started. The math degree, math was the easiest subject for me before college, so it seemed like the obvious thing to study in college. And then the dual degree program was all a part of all a part of that journey.
Hmm.
And the NASA scholarship really afforded me the opportunity to get the liberal arts education at Spelman, which I wanted.
Education is really like a tool that you used to position yourself for the.
Well, I had no idea that at Georgia Tech I would be introduced to Procter and Gamble. That was not in the cards. I didn't know that I would go to Cincinnati and work for P&G. It was just like, how did that happen?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I saw it as an opportunity. And looking at the time in Cincinnati with Procter and Gamble, it taught me a lot.
Mm.
So it was another education.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to see a corporate structure, to work in different departments in a corporate
Yeah.
structure, to create And as my husband says, I'm a project person. He says, "You're such a
Oh,
project
okay.
person." And he says my mother programmed me to be a project person,
Project person.
a project person. So
Okay.
I love taking on projects. And
Okay.
I love, like, I love in the theater that you create something from start to finish, not unlike an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur creates a business, from start to finish. And that's what you're doing with these productions. They're all small businesses. They're all
Oh,
startups. And so
so different like leadership teams, different.
they're all different. Each time we set out to produce something, you're starting from scratch,
Hmm. Hmm.
basically,
Hmm.
with a concept, and you're engaging people in that concept. And they, once they buy into the concept, then you're building on your team.
Got it. Yeah.
So, as I always say, when talking to students about all of the pivoting, is that it's really a toolbox, just looking at it as a toolbox. And what am I adding to it? And everything's a learning experience. And hopefully, there's some wisdom that's come from the last 20 productions that I can add to the 21st.
Hmm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I talked about during the intro and your bio just how many partnerships you've had to build or you found yourself in the center of, like all these different partnerships, it seems like. And I guess I want to know more about how you've found yourself building trust. Like what have you found to be the most effective or unique to your style when it comes to building trust? I know you even talked about how with your partner Stephen, you had to influence a number of people to take on this effort on Broadway.
Well, the credentials helped.
Right, 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 right,
The
right.
credentials helped, but also I would say
Credentials like education or
like
credentials. Oh,
educational
oh, okay.
credentials.
Okay.
But I would also say leveraging the skills that I brought to the table. So having the theater community respect that, have a handle on the numbers
Oh, yeah.
in a different way than any other producer, right? Because most of the producers are coming from like a theater management
Right,
background,
right.
and
And you're
so
coming from a
bringing that,
business. Yeah.
coming from business, coming from Wall Street, it's like bringing that to the table, being able to look at things from a different lens and having people respect that I do have that perspective.
Yeah.
I'm always threading this needle, I can
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
of really trying to stand in the integrity of what I'm doing, meaning I don't want to be working for a gun manufacturer. I don't want to be,
Okay.
you
Mhm.
know, I don't want to be selling bullets. I don't
Mhm.
want to
Mhm.
be, building or adding onto anything that I feel like would be destructive. But then, I remember a time at Procter and Gamble where I figured out that in the corporate structure, things were happening that were harmful to people that were using the products. And I felt a certain kind of way about that. And it's just like, no, I have all of this, pride and integrity, and that we're making soap and we're making shampoo, and what could be
Right.
wrong. And that's a part of what I stand on
Hmm.
in producing theater. I feel like, it's adding to the culture. it's
Yeah.
it's additive, not subtractive. And
Hmm.
in being a civil servant, it's like
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing I'm standing on. And of course, what I've recognized in life is that, yeah, you'll always come to a point where you understand that nothing is that black and white,
Right.
and you're
Hmm.
never
Hmm.
standing on, solid ground in that kind of principle. But I am driven by that kind of, North Star,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I can be doing something that's helping people.
Right.
And
Hmm.
that's a part of it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's, yeah.
I mean, how did you decide to be a leadership coach?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I wish someone ushered me when I was 12 in navigating so much about life in corporate America and American life, like all these different things. I wish I had more of a coach around some of these things. And because I've always been athletic, my coaches were like my dads, at least on the athletic side.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really have a coach for other areas of life. You find mentors and stuff, but I learned the most from my coaches, and to this day I'm still close to many of them.
Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's one thing. And then I think also I touched on my name, meaning added to the greatness. I mean, I'm at a point in my life leaning into 50 where it's like I'm taking inventory. Like, have I contributed enough to the world around me? And self-awareness and understanding your patterns, I think it does create a better environment for the world. If we all knew our quirks and patterns and could be mindful, what kind of world will we have? How would debates go if we were all aware of our quirks and just mindful of the highs and lows of our patterns. I just think that's a big part of it for me. And it manages to tap in some of those entrepreneurial interests that I had as a youngster. So yeah, at this phase of life, I'm really trying to make sure that I'm tapping into my creative ways of adding value to the people around me. Yeah.
Oh, see, you say that. That reminds me of a pattern that I had to get.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
So I am constantly, my commissioner calls me Sisyphus, but I'm constantly trying to get my inbox to zero.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
It
I mean,
is,
they're little projects. They're technically little
oh
projects.
my God. It's the little, yeah, and what
Mhm,
it's listed as in my to-do list is, answer at least 50 emails a day, right?
mhm,
But what I found that I had to give up was the idea that if you didn't answer in a
mhm.
day or
Right.
whatever, the expectation I was setting for myself was,
Oh.
that even reaching out to someone later. I mean, and I've reached out to people 6 months later, like, oh my gosh, I just dug this email out from
Hmm.
under 1,000 emails,
Hmm.
and I may have missed the first thing you were talking about, but let's keep talking,
Mm.
has borne so much fruit. And so just giving up the idea that making the connection, even if it's late or even if
Mhm.
you can't add it on to what you're doing at the moment,
Yeah,
making the connection is still very valuable, and people still value it, and so much comes from it.
yeah, yeah.
So I had to give up the idea that, oh, that email was from last month, so I won't even worry about answering that.
Oh, I see. I see. No, that makes sense. I think for me, order was very important to me because I had a very chaotic childhood. So I really appreciated order, structure, and I think that extreme started to show up as perfectionism. And so
Mm.
for me, age has a way of just slowing you down, whether you whether you want to slow down or not. And so, you know,
Can't pull the all-nighters anymore.
no, you can't. You can't. You can't. I mean, and so I think that's one indicator like that, okay, this is not sustainable. But then also, I think moving from New Jersey to Atlanta, I think those are different paces. And, until I made that move, I didn't realize all things that happen in Jersey don't work in other parts of the country.
We know what you mean. We know what you mean.
I think in order to navigate, just life in different parts of the country. And at this point, I've lived in like 8 states. Even though it's all America, there are all these subtle differences. I mean, you talked about Cincinnati. I lived in Kentucky. Like there are all these subtle differences. And if you don't pick up on it, you can miss stuff. And so I think for me, really just continuing to, give myself grace, give other people grace at the same time. I'm really trying to lean into listening a little bit more. Because again, that's something I've had to unlearn. Being from Jersey, you're taught to, claim your space, have a voice, and I think New York is some of that too. It's just claim your space, speak up.
You have to
And
claim your space on the sidewalk. You have to you have to project your
yeah,
body forward to move,
yes, yes, yes. So
I
yeah, I think, now at this point in life, there's a little more focus on balance. Jersey's still always in the building, always in the building. But, like it's about making sure I'm managing my quirks to the point where it's not managing me, because, you have to consider the time, the place, and you can't be the crazy HR lady. You can't. You can't. I think that's one thing. But then also, I think for me, some of the people I gravitated to when I started in corporate were more of the people in like learning and development. They were the folks that were teaching the organization new things and really helping them through 360s evaluate themselves and all that. And I just thought they were like superheroes because they dealt with so many personalities of folks that were just resistant to kind of learning how they came across. They get feeling
Hmm.
that's not me, that's not me. And so I think all that just kind of made me gravitate to coaching. And then also, I'm at a point where I realize this learning thing, it's like a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong thing. I mean, you talked about New York, things that were popular in New York at one point aren't there anymore, or things are shifting. AI is shifting things, a lot of things are shifting. And so if you are someone that doesn't like technology or doesn't like learning, with
Or
AI,
doesn't think that you have to pivot
yeah,
constantly.
yeah,
I mean, even
yeah,
if it's micro pivot,
yeah. So yeah,
everything's gonna pass you by. So
yeah, no, no, and that's essentially what has brought me to this work. But yeah, I still go hard on certain situations, but I think I just really try to choose my battles. And there are times where I even lean into silence just so that I can really make sure I'm creating a space where someone's comfortable speaking up. But yeah, I think I lean on intuition a little bit more, for sure. Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So, what advice do you have for leaders that are trying to, work into different systems that weren't built for it? Like, maybe like I feel like you've had to go into environments and create from nothing. Even when you talked about the gaming industry in New York and just really leaning into that as an industry, that's some of what I see happening more and more on the horizon when we think about the future and AI and all these new kind of opportunities that are going to come from it. So, what advice would you give to individuals that want to lead into a space where they're building something from nothing and, even trying to influence?
Immediately reach out for partners who are in the
Mm-hmm.
space,
Mm-hmm.
who see your vision and want to be a part of helping to make it a reality.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we talked about angels in the theater industry. Gerald Schoenfeld showed up as an angel for us because, yeah, we had no credibility for a
Mm,
theater owner to give us their valued real estate
yeah.
and not know whether or not we could actually make it happen, stand up the show, was a big leap of faith. And and work with the city, we often start out by putting together councils. I've even heard people talk about this. Like, I have never thought about the people that I engage around my career as my board of directors, but I've heard people talk about
Yeah. Yeah.
putting together their own board of directors.
Yeah.
Um, but in the creative industries, we've created councils that guide us, and so, leaders in the industry who have some insight to share and who can help us in crafting and moving our visions forward. And so I think personally, there's that opportunity for anyone who wants to create something.
Hmm. Got it.
And in creating something from nothing, that's kind of a misnomer because there is always something there. And so it's really tapping into what is there that your vision can use as a springboard.
Mm.
And so, people always say that creating something from nothing, but it's like, no, there's
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
standing on shoulders. There's always something there. There's the person even who tried to do it, who didn't get it done, who probably has some insight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just keeping all of that in mind, I
Okay.
think is key.
Yeah. And when you think about the entertainment space, is there any pattern that you'd like to shift or you'd like to see shift?
I think I've identified this a number of ways, but being in the theater world, I would really love to see, particularly with Black creatives, a world where we start collaborating around the intersection between a lot of these different creative outlets. In my mind, I'm thinking about theater and games all the time. Where's the intersection? I'm thinking
Mhm.
about film, games, theater all the time. And I feel like, as a culture, we have innovated in so many ways, and that is a big opportunity for us
Yeah.
to recognize that we're leaders in so many fields, and there's an opportunity for us to really leverage across fields and see how we can really create the next thing
Mhm.
that we haven't seen before by coming together on it. So I think there's a big opportunity. I think that there have been some attempts at adapting theater to film recently with some success, some unsuccessful. There's likely attempts to adapt content into games, but I think that it would be useful for us to think about how we can strategically capture. And really, I heard someone say this yesterday, but really understanding that the audience for content now is across so many different platforms that in an effort to have an impact and get a message out, utilizing as many as you can is important. So really understanding how we can leverage across all of these platforms.
Got it. Right. So I feel like you've reminded us that change happens when we lead, through partners, building partners, and you talked about angels.
And a lot of my partners are angels to me because I feel like they're putting a lot of confidence, in these visions and in seeing where there are outages. I feel like entrepreneurs are doing that every day,
Hmm.
are trying to figure out how to solve for what's not happening or what needs to happen or what would make life better or make the situation better. And so that's driving a lot of decisions about where to move next.
Hmm.
And and in that way, I'm somewhat free from the idea that I am resume driven.
Hmm.
It's more so about how I can use what I know over here to make a situation better. And I feel lucky to be in that position at this stage in life that I feel like I have something to add
Mm.
in lots of different scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you so much. For everyone listening, I'm sure that, this like glimpse into Broadway and just some of this entertainment space, I know it's new for me to kind of hear through you. And you've always been so generous just in terms of answering different questions as it relates to your path and the twists and turns that you've had. Is there anything that I didn't go over that you think would benefit the audience to hear about you or just some of the work that you're doing with the mayor's office?
Well, I mean, I would say that, I did not think about the creative industries when I was in school as where I would end up, where I would land.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, people are in the creative industries in so many different ways. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of ways to build a career in the creative industries. And so, I encourage people to explore it. Producing is really the business side of theater, but there's so many different ways to be a part of the and you see me kind of balancing two careers. I think there are other people here who are balancing multiple passions and really balancing them. And so I know I've had a lot of friends who decided as a second act that they would do something creative. And so I encourage it. I definitely encourage
Mm-hmm.
pursuing something in the space. I think being able to document this time is important. Being able to create that kind of legacy is important for our generation.
Yeah.
To be able to leave our voice is important. So I encourage this as a one way to make that a reality.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm doing in terms of just trying to use my voice more for
That's
sure.
right. I mean, I'm still thinking about patterns
Hmm.
in
Well,
um,
we have a lot of people in leadership, even political leadership, that it doesn't seem like they're always aware of their patterns and they're on the stage. And so that happens at all in all parts of our lives,
mhm,
and sometimes you can tell when someone's very aware of their patterns because they move with a very mindful way of how they impact the room. They're just very thoughtful
mm.
around that piece. And I think actors probably are good at that because they're so in
Well,
tune.
observers, right? The people
Yeah,
who are
yeah,
observing other people all of the time.
yeah. Yeah.
Like I think writers, I think actors, I think people who are observing how people move
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
they're experts
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're constantly in analysis mode of
Right.
what's happening. Because somebody asked me this the other day and it got me thinking, and it was a question about, well,
Yeah.
some therapy was asking me, okay, they were saying, what have been like the three high points that you would identify in your life up
Mm.
to this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the low points. Reflecting on that, I was just like, wow, what would I
Yeah.
identify as the high points and the
I
low
mean,
points?
even when I think about it, high point, oh man, I think Spelman's a high point. I think Northwestern's a high point. Moving back to Atlanta, feeling settled is a high point for me.
That's good.
No kids, no no husband. So I think those are high points, and just being financially stable as this 12-year-old that was like scared. I don't have family here. What am I gonna do? Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, so
Um,
okay, what would I say for high points? High points, of course, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, like opening that on
mhm.
Broadway. I just couldn't believe the turn life had
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so marrying my husband was a high point.
Yeah.
We loved our wedding. We had
Oh,
so much fun hanging out with all of our friends and
where was your wedding?
family. We got married in the Dominican Republic,
Oh, okay.
Casa de
Nice.
Campo,
Big
and
wedding? Big wedding?
it was big for a destination wedding. Like
Okay.
we had 100 people. We thought we would have 50 come to the DR, but we had 100 come to the DR,
Wow.
and it was designed. I mean, we spent a lot of time designing it to be just a fun time for intergenerational, our parents, our friends, um, have a lot of fun. And we did. And they're all still asking when we're going to have the reunion, when we're going to get
Oh,
everybody back
wow.
together.
Because folks really clicked. Folks really like have fun together. Yeah.
So we designed it for that. So we felt really good afterwards about,
Hmm.
how it was such a high. Um, and then I think Eclipse was a high point because it was such a women-led production.
Mm.
Um, at that point, I realized that we had had three female directors
Wow.
for the three shows that we were lead producing on Broadway. That Denai Guerrera writing the script was significant. That having an all-female cast was significant, and then tying it into an opportunity for 10,000 girls to see a Broadway show who had never seen a Broadway show.
Right.
And
Right.
the first group of girls that we had come to see the show, which blew my mind. They were all from homeless services in
Wow.
New York City,
Yeah.
and they were so mature at such a young age. And they were watching this story about captive wives of a Liberian commander during the Civil War.
Wow.
I mean, these are teenagers who were identifying with the women. We brought them to meet the cast after the show, and they were identifying with the women. They were identifying with their plight. They were identifying with the community that these women built,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, even in their circumstance.
Yeah.
And so that was really revealing for me and more of an insight into how powerful theater can be, of course. And so it's definitely been a high point in being involved with that production and reaching out to a lot of people that I would have never even imagined would say, yeah, I'm going to get behind that.
Mm.
Including like Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation,
Oh,
who
wow.
said, we'll sponsor some of these girls to come to the show. That was definitely a high point. So
Yeah.
I guess I would identify those three, but I don't know. I'll probably keep shifting as I'm thinking about
Yeah.
it.
No, yeah. As you
I
were talking.
loved living abroad for a minute. I
Oh,
loved
yeah.
living in London. That was so
I
much fun.
wish I got to
Well, you
do
got to do it. You'll get to do it. You just got to
that.
do it.
Well, in college, I wanted to do it, but
No,
yeah,
no, 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 no. You,
like
you may
now.
you may do a house swap and,
Yep,
and and go for it.
that's true. That's true. Now you touched on the highs, you didn't touch on the lows. Am I supposed to be a good interviewer and poke? I'm supposed to poke. You didn't touch
Poke for
on
the
the lows.
lows, poke for the lows.
I mean, I touched on some of my lows already.
Lows. We've been developing a musical for years, and perseverance has become like
Hmm. Hmm.
has become the rallying cry
Hmm.
in getting this done because we still believe in the the vision, but it's taking much longer than we thought, much longer. Being able to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Career wise, I am still aiming for lead producing the long running musical. That's the dream of every
Hmm.
Broadway producer, to be at the helm of a long running musical.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm not there yet. I'm a co-producer on some things that have been running for a few years, like MJ and
And the
hopefully
average, the average show runs for how long on Broadway? Like,
I mean, that's a good question. What is the
I
average?
wasn't sure if it was like if they threw that out a
The
lot.
average is probably 2 years, but
Oh, okay.
but that's because there are shows that have been running for 20 years and there's shows that have been running for 3 weeks. I mean,
Right,
you
right, right.
know,
So it's like,
yeah, on average, a musical, a hit, will
mhm.
take a year to recoup because the
Mm,
cost of putting up the show is somewhere between uh 15 and $30 million. And
mm.
so being able to pay the investors back might take
Yeah,
two
yeah,
years. It might take a year. It might take 2 years in a hit. I mean, if it's not a hit, the investors will lose. But the long running musical is like the musical that's, returned
yeah,
tenfold. And so it keeps running 10 years after it's recouped all of the original investment. And
yeah.
that's the dream. So of course I'm still aiming for that. And then personally, I thought I would have a family by now. I thought I
Mhm.
would have kids,
Me
and
too.
I don't.
I
So
know.
it's quite surprising that isn't what happened. But
Mhm.
I feel like as purpose reveals itself, so shall my purpose in that regard reveal itself. So it's something that definitely took me into a low space, I think, in hitting the 50 mark and being, oh my
Mm,
God, you know,
yeah.
that's kind of past me.
Well,
Um,
I remember coming up with someone I talked to, I forget, but they brought up just how they felt about their age. And for me, because, I wasn't sure if I'd make it to 53, to be quite honest. I mean, when you have parents that die early, you just kind of wonder, am I going to do that too? And so
mhm.
I've
Yeah, my
learned,
father used to
I,
talk about that.
yeah, wait, what'd you say?
My dad used to talk about that.
Yeah, so did your dad lose a parent at a young
He
age?
lost a parent. He thought he wouldn't live beyond 72. And when he did, he was just like, well, what is life supposed to be about now?
Right, right. So my mom died at 38. And so I think for
Wow.
me, it probably subconsciously influenced my decisions, just not wanting my kids to go through what I went through or whatever. And then when 39 came around, I was like, I'm still
I'm
here.
still here.
I'm still here. So I guess I should invest in retirement. I guess I should do all this stuff. So, but yeah, yeah, I think that's also why it's like I feel like there's so much purpose around, well, let me make good use of the time. But, I'm also someone who believes in financial health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health. So I think for me, when I hear people talk about age, I'm like, I'm just thankful. I'm just thankful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
you're on the other side. So
Yeah. Yeah, I am on the other side. We both
in
are.
in many ways. I mean, you're
Yes,
on the
yes,
other side of
yes.
38. You're on the
Yeah.
other side of,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
big
yeah.
50.
Yeah, no, I'm thankful. Not everyone gets to
That's
do
true.
that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your leadership with us. You reminded us that change and being a pioneer and unique, it's a pattern that's worth choosing to repeat. So for everyone listening, if something resonated today, I hope it'll guide one of your decisions, your next conversation, your next pattern. You can find more tools and reflections and guest episodes at bukologantala.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love this episode, I just ask that you leave a review, share it with someone, who's leading behind the scenes, and let's keep shifting so we know how to show up and demonstrate what leadership looks like. Thank you so much.
If this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can text or leave a voicemail at 404-828-0279. That's 404-828-0279. Or you can visit me at bukolaoguntala.com to send in a question, share your story, or explore coaching and speaking services. Whether you're leading a team or learning to lead yourself, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so we can keep growing together.